When you eat it, you're going to be satisfied for the moment, but you're going to be hungrier sooner, an hour, 2 hours after you've ingested that, than you would be if you actually ate peas. Hi, welcome to the Judy Terrell Show, where I explore topics intended to optimize every body 50, 60, 70, and above. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Judy Terrell Show. This is the first of my third 6-part series, and my topics that I focus in on is anything that's going to aid people, men and women both, over 50, 60, 70, 80, and beyond, to live optimally in their own bodies, and all things related to that are different once you're 50 plus than what you would have done when you were younger, that you need to know for whatever age you are now, and probably through the rest of your life, for the second half of your life stage of life. This series, this is the first of 6 in the third series. And this series, I'm focusing in on eating and nutrition. So there are a lot of things that need to be shifted once men and women both hit their middle stage of life and then beyond, that need to be done, that are different from when you're younger. Women, of course, go through their menopause state, where there's a very significant hormone changes, not just one, but several. And although men don't have so much of a dramatic shift at this time, there are hormonal shifts that also go on for men. And the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, are networked and affiliated and work in harmony and conjunction with many, many, many other hormones in our bodies that affect all other systems. And so, these times of our lives when the sex hormones change are affecting our digestion hormones and other hormones in our body. But for this series, I'm going to be focusing on how those changes are affecting digestional hormones and enzymes and peptides and all that goes with eating, and how that affects what we eat, our choices of what we eat, how the hormonal changes affect the effects in our body. And many, if not all the people, or most of the people that come to see me, are looking for weight loss as a primary goal, although there are many secondary goals as well, a variety of health conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Some have suffered from heart disease, cancers of a whole variety that have now been treated and are in remission or dormant, let's say. And now people are looking for information about their nutrition for, the post health event, or to prevent the health events. But again, most predominantly, they are noticing that their body fat, their adipose tissue is growing, their body composition is changing. And so this series, I'm addressing weight loss and weight maintenance, and what do we need to do from an eating perspective that is different when we're 50 plus than what we might have been able to do, and probably were able to do when we were younger. All right. So there's my entry. And why am I speaking on this? Well, I have a variety of nutritional certifications that I've amassed through the years. I have been working with clients individually for weight management for 4 decades, and I have had thousands, if not tens of thousands of clients, come through my doors with a variety of successes, but I have a pretty good success rate. And I have specialized in the over 50 crowd for about 7 years now. And I myself am 59. So I've been, over 50 for a full decade, and now knocking on the door of 60s. So I have my own, experience in my own body about how things have changed. I keep up to date on literature on this very topic. Right now, there's a ton of information coming out about anti-aging and longevity. And of course, I've had thousands of clients come through with their own stories, and, working on programs for them, and then watching what works and what doesn't work, and so on and so forth. Now, before I get into some of the specifics of my topic for this particular, the first in this 6-part series of how to eat once you're 50 plus to maintain optimal weight, I'm going to preface by saying I am a firm believer and practitioner in what is known as bioindividuality or bioindividual eating. And what that basically means is that there is no one right way that every human being on the planet should follow, or if they did follow, is going to work for everybody. So right now, plant-based eating, veganism is very much in vogue. I'm been in this industry for 40 years. I've watched it come up and then go down, come up and go down. And so a lot of people are coming to me with questions and questions about whether they should be vegans. High protein diets, very low carb, complete opposites of veganism, also in vogue. A variety of health conditions have been found to be aided by high protein, um, low carb, high fat diets. We have Mediterranean diets, we have paleo diets, we have raw food only diet, we have juicing diets, we have crazy diets, every fad that you can think of. So I am here. My position is there is no one right way for everybody to eat, and so in this series, I'm not really going to focus in on any one particular type of eating. But what I am going to focus in on is what changes once you're 50, 60, 70, and 80 in your own body, and then what you need to do to be in alignment with that. Whether you want to be a vegan or a paleo or keto or intermittent fasting or Mediterranean or any number of diets. All right. So that said, the first thing I want to highlight for what do people need to do that are over 50 when it comes to their eating if they're looking to lose adipose tissue and maintain their optimal weight is eat unprocessed foods. All right, I'm going to define that in just a second, but I'm going to tell you that no matter who the nutritionist, no matter what the expert is in nutrition, who they are, these people, the experts and the researchers, they vary significantly on a lot of points, but there's there's two or three that everybody agrees on. And this first one that I'm presenting right now is one of them. And that is human beings have evolved to eat whole foods, unprocessed foods. This body is most, proficient when that is what we're feeding ourselves. Right now in our grocery stores, I'm going to say 90% of what's out there is what I call unfood or processed foods, or, the term I'm going to use in this podcast that I want you to take home with you is fast digesting foods. Okay. So what are whole foods? Okay. My way of teaching my clients how to decipher what's a whole food is this. If you were stranded on an island, shipwrecked or whatever, and you had to fend for yourself and you had to live off the land and you had minimal things to, process food, you could make fire. Okay. So you could cook things. And you could pick things and grind things down, but there's no mill, there's no chemical plants, there's no manufacturing plants, there's no food processing plants. What would you be able to eat? You'd be able to pull a tuber out of the ground, a potato, a yucca root, yarrow root, taro root, sweet potato, purple potato. You would be able to pull a banana off a tree if it was a tropical island that you were on. If there were animals on your island, you could kill them and then cook them and eat their meat. If there were chickens on your island and they were laying eggs, you'd be able to eat that egg. If there were fish, in the water, you'd be able to get the fish. You could grow rice, you could grow oats, and you could process that, take their kernels and then cook that under heat and water. But what you would not be able to find on your island is soy protein isolate, for instance. All right. So that is a processed unfood or food. And a lot of my clients that are 50 plus will come to me with a variety of potions and powders and bars, and they'll say, well, this one is all organic pea protein concentrate with mango extract and quinoa protein concentrate, and it's all organic. And is this a good product for me to eat? I'm trying to lose weight and, optimize my health. And although it's all organic and, you can identify at least one word in the description of one of the ingredients or all the ingredients, I will throw back to the client who presents me with that food and say, well, what exactly is pea protein concentrate? if you are on an island, could you dig in the dirt and like pull up a handful of that? Absolutely not. So, as organic and as lovely and beautiful and, healthy for you as all that sounds, that fails to pass the first test of how to decide what you're going to put in your body. And that is, this is a processed food. It is not a food in the form that you would get if you were on an island. So why am I harping on this when it comes to weight loss for 50 plus? Well, when you are ingesting foods that are, for instance, pea protein concentrate or anything like that, you will usually have to, it's usually in a powder form, or it's in a food in a powder form that's been put together with other things into some other, it looks like a food, but it was powder to go in there. And you're going to eat it, and it starts to digest in your mouth and it goes into your stomach. And, because it's powder, because it's been taken from its natural source, fiber's been pulled out, the protein's been broken down into the powder, and you take it in, your body basically has to do very little to digest that. And now when you're over 50, so therefore I call it fast digesting foods, okay? When you're over 50 and your metabolism is slower and your activity level is lower and your hormone balance and your growth hormone are all lower, so therefore metabolically you're in an arrested state from when you were younger. When you take in foods that are highly processed, whether they be junky processed like a Pop-Tart, or so seemingly very healthy processed like pea protein concentrate, it's going to go through your system very fast because it's pre-digested basically by the food manufacturing plant that extradited a component out of the food, high heated it, chemically treated it, dehydrated it, put it into a consolidated powder, and then either added it to something else or put it into a container that you're now going to ingest. Okay. That is going to go through your digestive system very rapidly because your body doesn't have to do anything to digest it. It's almost down to its components already. It's going to go into the bloodstream very rapidly, and then it's going to get processed very rapidly. Why we don't want to take in those kind of products when you're trying to lose weight, when you're 50 plus, with arrested metabolisms, slower metabolisms, and less activity rate is when you eat it, you're going to be satisfied for the moment, but you're going to be hungrier sooner, an hour, 2 hours after you've ingested that, than you would be if you actually ate peas, for instance, using pea protein concentrate as my example here. Because cheese, you have to masticate. Peas, you have to masticate. You have to take it down into your system. It has to go into your small intestine, where the small intestine has to actually do work to break down the fiber and the molecules into smaller and smaller molecules so they can get down into their simplest, smallest form, like that pea protein concentrate, and then titrated through the mucous membranes and through the internal lining of your digestive system to be picked up on the by the capillaries on the other side, and then transported into your body's muscles and all the different organs and any place where that it needs to be used. So when you are trying to maintain or lose extra fat when you are 50 plus, it is not to your advantage to be taking in foods that are highly processed, whether you think they are healthy, good from their original source, or they're seen as being now joined together with high processed refined sugar and refined flours from wheat and rice and other, white flours. In any of those cases, this is a high processed food. It is going to be very rapidly digested and therefore is not going to be satisfying to you for a long period of time, like it would be if you had the actual food that if you were stranded on an island, you'd be able to ascertain. So the number one guiding principle, whether you want to be a vegan, whether you want to be a keto, whether you want to do intermittent fasting, if you are trying to lose weight and you're 50 plus, and this is men and women both, is the majority of time, if not 100% of the time, you want to eat food in the state it would be, or as close as it was, if you were going to get it in nature. And I want to give a couple examples because I gave you obviously the pea protein concentrate example, but I'm going to give you an example of how, we go from whole food into highly processed because there's intermittent steps in between in most cases. So I'm going to give you two examples. Number one, an apple. All right. If you were stranded on an island and there were apple trees and they bloomed and they had their blossom, they had their fruit and they matured, you could pull an apple off the tree and you could bite into it and you could chew it and eat it, and that would be a whole food. Now, we could take that apple and, in a mortar and pestle or, in some manufacturing plant, they could peel it and then mash it. And now we've got apple sauce, right? So now that is level one of processing off an apple. It is your utensil for mashing the apple has now pre-digested it to a certain degree. Your digestive system doesn't have to do that. That's going to go through you that much faster. The peel has been taken off. So again, there's fiber and other benefits to the peel. And so that is already processed, but let's go another level. So now we take that apple sauce, if you will, and we put that into a smoothie. And now the blender really gets, it going, and it gets it even smoother. And so you can drink it now instead of eating it with a spoon like the applesauce. Now we're another level down into the processing of an apple. Okay, that's going to go through your system that much faster. The fiber from the peel has been taken out. So now we have a little bit more of a consolidation of the sugar because some of the fiber has been removed. All right. Now let's take that and let's squeeze out the fiber that's actually in the pulp of the apple and put it through a juicer. And now we've got just the juice, and now all the fiber has been removed, and we have apple juice, and it might be an organic apple. And there might be no sugar added to the juice of that apple. And in order to get a glass of that apple juice worth drinking, it's not one apple, it's probably 8 apples. And that's apple juice, all organic and no sugar added. And that would be the most processed in my example here. Now we can go further and we can dehydrate that and call it apple juice concentrate, and now add that as a sweetener into a food, and that's even more processed. All right. But you can see the progression, right? I'm going to give you another example so I can reinforce my point. So we have, let's say, brown rice, wild rice that grows in a field. And you could get that if you were on your island, and you could put it into water and boil it up, and then it would get soft and mushier and you'd be able to eat that. So that would be processing. The cooking of the rice is actually level 1 processing, but like I said, you're not going to eat 100% non-processed, but it's the degree into the processing sequence that we want to avoid. So we have wild rice, then we have cooked wild rice, then we have rice that has been robbed of its fiber and bleached, and now we've got white rice, next level of processing. And now we take the white rice and we mash it down and we roll it out and add some water to it and we cut it into rice pasta. Now, a lot of my clients think, well, this is the rice pasta or the corn pasta or the bean pasta, and this is better for me, right, than the white flour pasta, right? Well, not necessarily, because just because it's not gluten, if it is a flour, it's already been processed down, all right? Now, some flours still have some fiber in it, so the beans might have more fiber than the white rice flour, but you can see where we're already progressing into this, processed food. Right now, we take that white rice and that's been, pounded down and made into a flour, and we extradite out of that rice syrup. And that's the sugar component only. And we make that liquid, and now we add rice syrup to a non-cane sugar food product that someone will read and say, no cane sugar, thinking that this is a good product for them, but it's been sweetened with rice syrup. All right. So again, there's the progression. Wild rice into, white rice into rice pastas and rice flours, and then rice syrup. So as you're going down that slippery slope of processing, that rice is going to be faster and faster and faster digested and more consolidated into the components that tend to lead to various illnesses of the human body, because we were never meant to have it that consolidated. We would have to eat fields of rice to get the amount of, glucose and sugar from that, like a couple tablespoons of rice syrup, which is being used to replace a lot of things that people think are healthy because they don't have, like cane sugar in them, or sugar cane, or refined table sugar. So you get how this progression happens. Now, I just gave you a couple examples that are carbs, but this is the same for proteins. So going back to my first example, not plant-based proteins, but for instance, whey protein powders, very in vogue right now. Many people seeing them as like the elixir of the gods, trying to build muscle. But what I want to point out to you is that, again, whey protein, or any protein powders, but I'm using whey now in this example because whey comes from milk. Okay, so it is not a plant-based protein. This is a animal protein. So we take milk that cows have been fed to, huge amounts of hormones to produce a lot of milk, and then we pull out the whey from the curds and the other, the liquid, and the other components of the milk, the lactose and all that. And then we, again, high heat it or chemically treat it and then dry it into this powder. And then that powder is put into a protein container and mixed with maybe some other things and been sold as like this, because it's consolidated. It's really good, if you're trying to build muscle or become, a bodybuilder, or you're older and you're been told that you need to have more protein, which is true, by the way. There'll be a subsequent podcast in this series. But yes, you need more protein coming from a form that is identifiable if you were in nature, okay? Not this powder thing that you are, your body is not meant to be taking in such a consolidated, form. So you can see that. Now, that protein powder, and I can give you the same example with fats, and I can give you the same example with more carbohydrates, but the point I'm making for this podcast is the more processed and the more removed it is from the state it is in, if you were stranded on an island and could get it, the faster it's going to digest in your body. And when you're trying to lose weight, faster digesting is not your friend, okay? Now, when you were younger, you could do that, and you had more vibrant metabolism, and the hormonal balance in your body was very different to be able to maybe support that. Your activity level was higher. But when you're 50 and over and your body has gone through like hormonal changes like females in menopause, these fast digesting products of any sort, carb, protein, or fat, unless you've got a health condition or some sort of a digestive issue that prohibits your body from being able to normally digest food, then these foods, quote unquote, are really not to your benefit when you are 50 plus. You want to back out of that, processing equation I just showed you and go back to as close as possible to the food in the state it would be in nature if you were to get it yourself. All right, buddy. So this is podcast number 1 in my 6 series of how to eat to maintain optimal weight and health when you're over 50. And I have 5 more just as interesting, titillating podcasts coming up in the series. And if you're feeling like there's some merit to what I'm saying and it's interesting you and you're thinking that you might get some value, not just from the podcasts that are coming, but I invite you to go to my website where I have a variety of resources that you can download, including menus for both men and women. I have 2 separate categories, men and women, because there's some differences in how the digestion over 50 is for both, those genders. And you can download some menus with 3 breakfasts, 3 lunches, 3 dinners with what I have found to be very successful with my 50 plus people. And all of them that are on the website definitely follow my least processed, how do you find the food in nature principle, as well as some others that I'm going to cover. So once again, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is the Judy Terrell Show, and be well, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks for listening, everybody. And if you'd like to have access to some of my additional resources, I can be found at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on my website, www.judyterrell.com.